Jerry, how are you?
Hi, Derek. Good to talk to you. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
fine.
Good. Thank you for spending time with me today. Let me just first say, the reason I jump is supremely wonderful and so underrated.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I know that's not why we're here, but believe me, we're going to
No,
get
no,
to
it's
why we're here.
always nice.
So I have to say, there's so much to get into this. I'm not sure 10 minutes can do it justice, but I'm going to try. I love the set recreation. Oh my God. How long did that take? And was that an expensive process?
I mean, yeah, for me as a documentary maker, most of the time I'm working with sort of small crews and small teams. The reason I jumped, I think it was just a DOP and a sound recordist, and we were out kind of with people. This is like a different beast altogether. Much bigger crew, much bigger operation, much more planned, much more is like kind of much more trying to guide a super tanker than kind of run around and respond to a situation. Um, in terms of the set, we were lucky that Morris, who's the investigator at the center of the story, was a kind of very mathematically minded man, and he'd drawn a very precise, measured plan of the house with the positions of all the furniture and how they moved and the size of the room. So that was our starting point. And then there were these photographs that were taken by the Daily Mirror photographer and others who were in the house, which enabled us really to sort of source the furniture. The family themselves, Janet and Margaret, also gave us some things. So some of the things you find in the house, the Jackie magazines were the actual magazines that were in the house at the time. So it's this kind of nice combination of kind of recreation and the real objects.
The attention to detail is unbelievable. And I love the little touches you guys did where I love the actors lip syncing. I loved bringing back the original witnesses. I loved all of it. Is it more or less challenging to have actors lip sync the dialogue that was recorded?
I think it's certainly different, like this is
Yeah.
something that none of us had done before. The younger ones who were used to TikTok were maybe kind of immediately in that place and could do it very easily. I think for the older actors, it was about finding, they said to me, it was about finding the way the character breathes. Once they got the breath of that character, they found that kind of easier from a directing point of view. And I guess what you're doing with an actor is you're taking away one of the tools of acting, which is the intonation. They have no control over how they say a line. um,
Mm.
so that's a kind of really interesting challenge for an actor. They've got to deduce everything from the voice. All of their actions, all of their expressions have got to come from the voice that's there. From a directing point of view, we had to be hyper planned. Obviously, we needed an audio cut of every scene before we started the shoot, so that we knew exactly, where we were going to be and what we were shooting. So certainly, really different from a conventional documentary process where I'm, as I get older, I kind of plan less and less. I'm much more trying to just be in a situation and respond to it than having a detailed plan about what we're going to shoot. Whereas this is much more like a drama shoot.
Yeah, Jerry, I love documentaries, and sometimes they're very formulaic, and I like how yours kind of stepped out of the box a little bit. Like it's not that it becomes more watchable than the others, but just becomes different in a super positive way.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, for me, like the form of it is always dictated by the material, and this very rich audio material, and the fact that we could kind of haunt this set with real recordings was a gift. And I would say, like, it's never about you having this idea of the form of something fully formed before you do it. It's like it comes about through the process of writing it, and or process of planning it, and in the end it's, you just hope that form really reflects the content, reflects the relationship you want the audience to have with what's going on screen.
Yeah, so I'm speaking with just I know this is recorded, but just for those watching, Jerry Rothwell, director of the Enfield Poltergeist, releases 10/27 on Apple TV Plus. I have to say, this movie got me thinking about a few things. And one of them is, if there is evil, if there is a poltergeist, if there is a devil, then there has to be good. There has to be a force of good. I don't call it angels, call it whatever you will. There has to be a God. You cannot have one without the other. So if you believe that this is what happened, then you have to believe that there's good and there's a God and there's faith. And listen, I'm an agnostic. I don't claim to believe in faith. I don't claim that there's disbelief. Am I going over the top with this, Jerry? Am I reaching on this? Is that an over complication
I
of
think
things?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I think one, for the series, we wanted to keep people in that space between belief and disbelief, like, because that feels like a productive place for humans to be, to think about, what do I believe in and why, and what's the evidence, and that felt like a good place to keep the series. For me, I guess the paranormal is always about those things that are slightly beyond our reach, that's slightly beyond our perception. Perhaps you can't even understand them. Perhaps everyone that goes into that house to try and measure the poltergeist is barking up the wrong tree. Perhaps the poltergeists are of a different order. It's like saying, how do you measure love? Or does love exist? Most of us think that love exists, but if you tried to evidence it, it would be tricky. You could only look at its impact. So for me, yeah, exactly what you say. Hopefully the series takes us into those areas that are really hard to describe and hard to pin down, but are really fundamental to the way humans experience the world.
Yeah, that's well said. And I have to say, so it's a wonderful story. It's, to me, this is how I define it. Not about a demon. It's not about Enfield. It's not about a family. This is Maurice Gross's story. He is the secret sauce of this movie. I mean, just for those listening, this man was married over 50 years. He's a veteran of Dunkirk. Are you kidding me? He sounds unbelievably like Michael Caine. He's got this unique look. He loses his youngest daughter, and that's kind of what sparks this whole like journey and adventure. Poor Janet, his youngest daughter. He cared for that family, the Hodgins. He wasn't using them for any type of gain. He loved them. He loved them as a person. I don't know, Jerry, I have to say, I love this movie on a multitude of levels. It is definitely a movie you could sit with Halloween around the corner and enjoy the hell out of it. But it's also a love story. It's a family story. It's a beautiful story. I'm gushing, but it's a rightfully gush. I guess is the way to put it.
Right, thanks. It's very kind words.
Yeah, and am I reaching by saying this is Maurice's story? Like, is that a good?
No, I think that's right. I think that's. I guess we try and take people into the story from 2 points of view. We had access to all of Maurice's notebooks and diaries, and that voice you hear is all from his diaries and things that he wrote at the time. And so you're coming into it on his shoulders in a way, into this world that he, to begin with, doesn't understand, then forms some conclusions about, and then you kind of understand deeper what motivates him. And so I think it's absolutely for me, there's sort of two centers of the story. There's Maurice is a center, and Janet and the family are the center. And in some ways, it's about what happens when those two planets collide.
Two more questions, Jerry, and thank you for all this time. Jerry, what did you come away with? I don't know if it's unfair for me to ask you your personal belief, but what do you think, Jerry? I mean, I'm sure every person that's interviewed you. So, I mean, what do you, at the end of all this unfolding, the access you have to things perhaps we did not see, that maybe you just not enough time to put in. What did you take away from this, Jerry?
I mean, I think it is. I think it's probably unwise for me to come to dictate something that I hope an audience will experience for themselves. But for me, I certainly didn't come away a complete skeptic. The series is not about debunking something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come away as a total believer. There's clearly a lot of sort of psychological kind of group things going on there as well. I think it's this kind of mishmash of all of those different possibilities, and the answer really is that we don't know, and I'm not sure we can know. Certainly, I don't think we can know about the Enfield Poltergeist because it's 50 years old, and we'll never, as I said, what we have is largely sounds, and sounds are very ambiguous, which is probably why they're very compelling as well. Because
it works, it works better because you're providing the visuals. Like you provided the visuals, but yeah, the sound gives it a little bit of an eeriness, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is, for those listening, this is the story behind the second Conjuring. Am I right with that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's Conjuring 2. Yeah, which I haven't watched actually. I tried to avoid anything that might influence me, so I don't know whether it's similar to it or very different.
Jerry, when you look at the final product, what are you most proud of? Right, because this just looks like a great documentary. It feels great. There's so much to it. There's so many layers. What are you most proud of? Maybe another unfair question, but when you look back at it.
I think I'm kind of I'm proud of the way in which it holds in balance all of those different things that we've been talking about. You know, it still feels to me quite a strange thing we were all involved in, and we've come up with something that's quite unusual and unique. And I just hope an audience appreciated that. I mean, people might just think it's weird, but hopefully that the kind of strangeness of it is something that kind of creates ripples for an audience and makes them kind of think about it long after they stop watching it.
And it does pull you back and forth. This will be the last thing I say. I'm sorry, I get really amped up when I like these wonderful documentaries. You do go back and forth a little bit, because like part of me is like, boy, these sisters are good actors. They're really good. And then I go back to like, well, stuff was just flying around the room. Like it's almost like, when you watch a documentary or some movies or shows, you can tell where they're trying to push you some way. And you mentioned it before, the way you've kind of let the audience decide what they want to believe, that's an art itself. That's the art.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the job of the series is to get an audience thinking about those questions. It's not necessary. And give them the tools for the answers, but not necessarily give the answers. I think you have to. You don't want to hide things that if there was like definitive evidence that this never happened, you would be obliged to put it in. And if there was definitive evidence the other way, in the end, most of it is about raising that question, getting people to think about those issues.
Yeah, October 27th. You can catch the Enfield Poltergeist on Apple TV Plus. Such a good series, and thank you so much for this time, Jerry. I'm a big fan, and I look forward to more of your work down the road.
Thanks.